Okay, my name is Val Zudans. I'm the former mayor of the city of Vero Beach, Florida. And on today's city council meeting, there was an extensive discussion about masks. The background was that just previously, about a few weeks ago, our city did something that most cities are not doing, and they did the right thing. They treated our citizens like adults, and they strongly recommended that people take social distancing precautions and wear masks when in public when they could not social distance, which are very reasonable recommendations. And my experience has been, being around Vero Beach, that people are doing that. They're following that recommendation. And just about everywhere you go, the grocery stores and other places, there's a high level of compliance with the voluntary request. The community is being massively divided on this mask issue. And this has nothing to do with the mask, it has to do with the government mandate. And that's what's dividing people. People are willing to comply and do the right thing as best they understand it. And if there's any flaw in what the government, the main flaw in what the government has done is not properly explain what's going on. But this entire argument and dilemma is related to, has nothing to do with mass, it has to do with self-government. America, and it has to do, rather than mass, it has to do with what it means to be an American. For the first time in the history of humankind, in the late 1700s, a nation was founded based on a totally different idea than all the previous nations. And that was every other nation, the citizens, to the extent there were citizens, got their rights from a king, a religion, a warlord. Someone else granted them rights. We have a nation as Americans that was founded on the idea of self-government, that we own the rights, that God gave us rights to life, liberty, and property. And we then formed a government to protect our rights. There had never been a nation like this in the history of humankind. One of the things that they talked about a lot in the founding of our country, the founding fathers talked about, was they didn't just talk about rights though, they talked about responsibilities. And every right, if you think about rights, like the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms and all of our rights that are ours, not given to us, but given to us by God, not given to us by man. All of those rights have an associated responsibility. And that's what self-government is about. Self-government is not that you elect leaders to tell you what to do. Self-government is you do the right thing because you're acting in a moral fashion. You do it because it's the right thing to do. That is exactly how our country was designed, and we were told. And in all the writings, you can see that our country will never work. It cannot survive without self-government. This mask mandate agenda is an assumption that Americans are stupid and we cannot self-govern. We cannot look out for one another. We cannot act in a responsible way. And therefore, the government is going to make you do it anyway. And it's actually totally wrong. And the reason why I say that it's definitely not the masks that are causing this is back in April, the CDC, after previously saying that we don't need to wear masks, masks are harmful, masks are not beneficial, reversed and said that everyone should start wearing masks. Well, the truth is that they did. The American people, and there were studies, including one done by Reuters that was a compilation, they done it multiple times over time, and basically they approached about an almost 80% compliance rate. And that, you may say, well, that's not 100%. That's all they were assuming. Most of the studies that were saying, the models were saying that you need to have about an 80% compliance rate in order to dramatically reduce the spread of the virus. So we were doing it. Why the mandates? It's the mandates that are making people rebel. And this is just a small portion of a much bigger rebellion that is going on, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, and it's been going on for years. That is what, and it's a rebellion against elites who think they know what is better for us than we do as our own. Think we know what's better for our children with schools. They think they know better what's better for our bodies. And they're often wrong. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the initial information was incorrect, and some of the current information is incorrect. But that it's a side issue. People have had it. The Brexit, the second election for Boris in England was a rebellion. The reason Hillary Clinton is not president of the United States is because of her basket full of deplorables. What were they deplorable for? They wanted to cling to their guns. They wanted their right to, they wanted to protect their right to bear arms. They wanted jobs. They saw that their jobs left and went with NAFTA and other world trade globalist ideas, and they're allowed. They're justified in being upset about those things. The rebellion happened in France. In Paris, the leaders in Paris decided that global warming was more important than the livelihood of a lot of the farmers and other citizens in that country. They significantly increased the taxes on purpose in order to try and reduce carbon footprints. And the people rebelled. They were in the streets. Some of these things, when they start out that way, they get hijacked by other organizations, but it's the same thing. And now we have I call him Dr. Fraudsy. He testified in front of Congress and said that up to 2.2 million Americans were going to die from this virus if we didn't essentially put healthy people on house arrest. By the way, that has never happened in the history of pandemics and epidemics. You isolate sick people. You don't isolate the healthy. So this is not even anything new. And then the mask, he said that we shouldn't be wearing the mask. He actually admitted later that he was fraudulent. He admitted himself. He said that masks were no good in the beginning because they didn't have enough masks and they wanted to protect PPE. He didn't trust the American people. He thought you were stupid. And it's actually an incredibly bogus argument anyway, because if cloth masks are helpful, there's no reason why people couldn't be making cloth masks from the beginning. So if anyone wonders why people are upset and rebelling and getting upset about the mask, it's not about the mask. It's about a arbitrary government that does arbitrary things. It's not about the mask. It's a rebellion against the arbitrary elite leaders in our nation. And I'm talking primarily the public health right now. Arbitrary stuff, and some of the Democratic governors. It didn't happen here in Florida, but in Michigan, they actually banned internal combustion engine powered boats. Okay, so you couldn't go on a Sea-Doo, you couldn't go on a motorboat, but it was perfectly legal to go on a sailboat or a rowboat. If it wasn't powered by gasoline, then it was okay and you were safe from the COVID, but if it had gasoline, you're gonna get COVID. We see a lot of the same things with the way that alcohol is being treated, even in Florida. A bar, if you maintain safe social distancing if you're inside, that should be the rule. It shouldn't be what you're consuming, whether you consume alcohol or food or in a grocery store shopping or whatever it is. There's tons of arbitrary stuff, and that's part of the problem here. It gets very confusing, and the people don't understand. They don't know what to believe. They don't trust their leaders anymore. And it's all because of this idea that the leaders do not trust the people to self-govern. And the one thing that the government can do is provide information, but they have to be accurate. They have to tell us the truth. They did crazy things. They did that here in Vero Beach. They closed the beaches. There is tons of overwhelming evidence that it's safe to be outside in temperatures above 77 Fahrenheit and higher than 50% humidity. with the UV light, it's nearly impossible to transmit a virus under those conditions, and yet they closed the beaches. And I told them all. I sent the emails, I sent the papers before they did it, trying to encourage them not to do it, but they did it anyway. Talk about arbitrary. The person who, and Ray Neville has said it publicly, he's the person, the city council member here in Vero Beach who proposed this new mandate. He also publicly said that he's had the virus. He had the virus. The guy is immune. He can't give it to other people. He can't get it again. And but he wants to pass a mandate that would actually force him to wear a mask when he's in a public place for no legitimate, logical reason. It's not about the mask. It's about leadership. And I think back to what happened. I wasn't alive, but I've read about it in World War II. The people were panicked. There was a war. They were dropping bombs on London. And they had signs all over the place that said, keep calm, carry on. We need leaders that actually engender calm, that tell us the truth, that help us to self-govern better. We are moral people. We do try and do our best. We do not want to hurt one another. And for government to think that we're not that way, that's an insult to us. And we should not tolerate people who act in that way against us. There's the truth. I'm a physician. I understand that the studies actually say the most important thing to avoid transmission when you're out in public is distance. So when you're 3 feet away from someone, you reduce the risk of transmission by 82%. It's almost exactly the same if you wear a mask when you're closer than 3 feet. It reduces about 82%, down to about a 3% risk that you could still transmit it. If you increase that distance to 6 feet, you reduce that risk by another 50%. So you can get it down to 1.5% just by distance without a mask. Eye shields also can significantly reduce the risk, but not as much as those other two. Tell people this. I mean, it's like, what's really happening is people think that this mask makes them immune. So then they get right up in people's face, or they yell at someone in someone's face for not wearing a mask. They don't understand that what they're doing is highly dangerous and harmful. What we really should be doing as a government is we should be treating people like adults. We should be helping them to self-govern. I think it would be great if there was a public service campaign, whether it's announcements or social media or other things like that. And it could be something, a takeoff of the keep calm and carry on. It'd be something simple like keep calm, stand back. Or I don't know what it is, but that's what marketing people are for. The general idea is that what we're dealing with, and I think a lot of people don't, if you want people to stay healthy, you just assume that people who are against masks are just wrong or ignorant. But what it is they are rebelling, and they're rebelling against a government that does not trust them and is not honest with them. And so it's not about the mask. It's about helping people self-govern, and do the right thing, because that's what they will do. If you treat people like adults, they will act like adults. That is what it means to be an American. That is what's different about us than any other nation that was ever created by man. I thank you for your attention, and I hope you find that interesting.